everyone for turning up. I think we're at 19 at the moment. That's far more than I was expecting. So welcome along and thanks for coming. Get on with it. So Summits on the Air, amateur radio with altitude. Nice pun. I got into this very quickly after getting my license back in 2016. It was actually the 2-meter contest. After I got licensed, went up one of the hills in Wicklow with a little Baofeng. Just think it might be a fun thing to do. I knew a bit about SOTA. Well, I knew it existed. But on that first effort, managed to get a summit to summit across 2 Isles with someone on Mount Snowdon. And it seemed to be a pretty popular activity, and I've kind of just kept it up since then. I know there's a couple of people probably on this call that are certainly more experienced in it, but yeah, I'll go through this talk anyway, and you know, they may have some other advice they want to share. So I'll go through a little bit of the history of SOTA. You know, what mountains count and why. A little bit then on equipment, the radios. I'm going to talk a little bit about power. I think the battery discussion is probably overcomplicated a bit by a lot of people, but it's worth spending a bit of time on just so you understand how to you know, choose an appropriate battery. A little bit on antennas, and then, you know, how to actually go about, you know, activating, and a couple of summits that you might be interested in tackling around South Dublin. So let's get on with it. So amateurs have obviously been operating from hilltops for a very long time, long before this program was started. But it was only started in 2002 by John Linford and Richard Newstead. Richard, you may know from SOTA Beams, the shop basically for SOTA in the UK. He also runs a YouTube channel and is quite active on Facebook as well. So he's probably better known than John anyway. I think I haven't come across John on YouTube or anything. Since 2002, it's grown quite a bit. So this is as of last week sometime. Over 18,000 registered users, of which nearly 8,000 are activators. 180 associations, 150,000 different summits within those associations. 6 million QSOs in the database and 35,000 activated summits. So out of the 150,000, there's only 35,000 activated. Most of the ones in Ireland have been. The exceptions are the hard to get ones, and the ones that you can't get access to. They're on a private land, or they're surrounded by private land that you can't easily get access to, or at least without getting permission. The bulk of the others are probably in associations where, you know, there will be a lot in the Alps, for example, and they're not the easiest mountains to just pop up with a radio and do an activation. And there are some valid ones in Ireland that just haven't been activated. I had a plan pre-COVID to trek around the Neffens in Mayo and activate some of the summits there that hadn't been done. But yeah, maybe next year if COVID goes away, we'll get to that one. The Irish Association then, since this started in England, the nearby associations were the kind of first ones in. So Gulf India has 65 summits, and Echo India there's 389. John Smithy at 3KA has been, you know, prolific in this. I don't think I've ever met him or had a QSO with him, but just looking at the amount of activations he's got under his belt, it's quite impressive. And that picture's from his QRZ page. So it's yeah, pretty nice activation that would have been that day. So what makes a SOTA summit? It isn't just that you can, you know, go up the nearest hill, and it's not also what you might think of it. It's the big mountains. Looking at this map of Wicklow, we have at the top there's Tunlagee there is a 10-point SOTA summit, and down the bottom left as Lugnaquilla is also a 10-point. But none of the summits in between are, and you would think, mouse going a bit off there. You know, you would think somewhere like Turlock Hill, Kamodary would be, but they're not. And yet when you look west of Lugnaquilla, you've got hills that you will never have heard of more than likely. Baltinglass Hill, Caden Mountain, that do count. So what's going on? What makes some of these summits SOTA summits and what aren't? Well, we have to go back in history a little bit to 1891 with Sir Hugo Munro, a mountaineer in Scotland, who made a list of all the summits that were over 3,000 feet. And this started, you know, what's termed peak bagging by the mountaineering community. Of once there's a list of things to get, as soon as there's a DXCC list, everyone wants to check it off. Similarly with the Munros, everyone wants to climb those mountains. It's great for mountaineering, less useful for hill walking and hiking. So Alan Dawson in 92 produced a book that listed the relative hills of Britain, he called it. And these are ones that have topographical prominence, which basically means they're big relative to their surroundings. And how he defined it was they must have a topographical prominence of 150 meters, regardless of their absolute height. So they can be small hills, but once they're 150 meters in prominence, they're fine. And he called these the Marylands. Why are they called Marylands? If you haven't spotted the pun yet, Marilyn Monroe. So what makes a SOTA summit? Just to explain that 150 meters, this is from KD9KC, who's one of the association managers in one of the US associations, so it's all in feet. So the 150 meters is around about 500 feet, we'll say. So the top summit here, yeah, that qualifies for SOTA. It's obviously the most prominent mountain in this little range. The middle one, however, is only 150 feet from the col there, from the little valley between the mountains. So it doesn't have a significant prominence, topographical prominence to count. But then going to the one on the left where we dip down into a valley and come back up again the far side, 600 feet, then okay, that is deemed to have the topographical prominence. So this is why we have Lugnaquilla and Tunlagee, but not the mountains between them, and yet out into the countryside, some of the smaller hills do count. They mightn't be big in their own right, but relative to their surroundings, they are. Do you need to worry about this? No. There's a SOTA Maps website that you go along to, enter in the association you're in and the region you're in, Ireland East, for where we are at the minute. There are 4 regions within Ireland, or within Echo India. And this will bring up a list of the mountains. You can click on those and get some more details. Last time they were activated, pull up some details about what bands were used, things like that. It'll also give you a link to, if there are any blog posts about someone who activated it previously, you know, how they found the hike up, you know, is it a nice mountain, things like that. So how do we activate a summit then? Well, we pick one to start with, so we've touched on that with the website there. Choose your radio equipment. It's up to you what you want to bring. I'll go through some of the considerations. Choose your hiking equipment. That varies a lot with Irish hills. Go to the summit and set up. Spotting yourself within the SOTA cluster, SOTA watch. You don't have to, and you know, if you're up for like a 2-meter counties contest, you won't need to. There'll be plenty of people who will spot you. But if you're up on a hill where you don't have great local coverage to hit the local repeater and ask for contacts, and you're relying on QRP HF, then being able to spot yourself can make it a lot easier and get your contacts. And then call CQ, and when you're home, upload your log. I'll just touch on the very last one first, was uploading your log. SOTA is based on trust. If you say you were up on a mountain and you've produced native file, or you enter your logs in manually, that's accepted in good faith. There are other award systems, Worldwide Flora and Fauna bin one, that will require you to send a picture of yourself and your equipment at a sign or your GPS or something. SOTA doesn't bother with that, which simplifies things greatly. I think it encourages people to take part. So yeah, you're trusted. So picking a summit, we looked at the SOTA Maps website there briefly. For Echo India, the 10-point ones there, like Lugnaquillan and Tunlagee, are above 700 meters. 1 point then is between 150 and 300. That those rules are specific to Echo India. Gulf India is slightly different, and obviously somewhere like the Alps, everything's above 700, so they have a different grading scheme. So choose your level. Is there public access? So most of the hills in Ireland are on public land, or at least have obvious right-of-ways. There are a few that have very explicit "do not enter, you'll be shot" signs. So yeah, check those. If they haven't been activated before, there may be a good reason. Go on to Google Maps, have a look around, see if there's any no trespassing signs. Can you get to the summit? So this will depend on your own abilities and what you feel like doing. Is there a road or a path or a trail up there? Can you cycle to the summit? Can you drive to the summit in some cases? Or being Wicklow, for example, do you need to hike through Blanket Bog? Do you need to cross streams? Crossing streams might be fine for a lot of people. Just going hiking, when you've a few radios and expensive gear in your back, maybe you don't want to risk it. But that's just planning things. Ways to help you plan it. OpenStreetMap is probably better than the obvious Google Maps. The satellite on Google Maps is great, of course, but OpenStreetMap will indicate if there's kind of walking trails that may not be formal ones. There wouldn't be things on the Ordnance Survey map or Google Maps. You can see where other people have gone. The mountain details on the SOTA Maps website may have kind of blog posts about possible routes up. And the last one I find really useful for new areas is the mountainviews.ie website. So this is a site from mountaineers and hill walkers that will give information on mountains, photos, but it's pretty strong on the practical stuff of where do you park your car? What little laybys are there that two cars can fit into that has an easy walk up? It's well worth checking out for areas that you don't know. A lot of us are probably familiar with a lot of the roads around Wicklow, but if you're somewhere down in Kerry, it's handier to be able to just get some almost local advice there. So equipment, God, you as for radios, yeah, you can bring whatever you like. There's no requirement here that this has to be QRP. If you want to, and you're strong enough to carry a full QRO, and I don't know if Colin is here, but he was saying he brought like a 12-kilo battery up a hill recently. You can go for it. There are a couple of rules though. It can't be used from or near a vehicle. So SOTA does try to be as inclusive as it can, that recognizing that people may not have the ability to hike up mountains, and to be a bit more inclusive. If you can drive to the summit, grand, drive to the summit. But you must be using a portable power source, and you can't actually operate from within your car. But you can just go to the car park if there is one on top, and go set up on a picnic table beside it. Choices of radios then, yeah, a VHF handheld, that's how I started. It's probably something that everyone has. It's light, it's got a battery built into it, it has an antenna that will be, in most cases, good enough. You do need to be careful with some of the Baofeng type radios around summits with the big broadcast transmitters. You'll notice that on Capure, certainly. Two Rock, not so much. You're a little set back from that array of antenna that we were looking at earlier on. You are, of course, limited then to well, generally, depending on the handheld, limited to FM on 2 meters and 70 centimeters. Around Wicklow and Dublin, that's probably okay. Certainly, if you can spot, or you can put a message on, a Facebook group, you'll generally get the 4 QSOs that are needed for it to count for points towards award. Just one QSO counts for activating the summit, but you need 4 to claim the points yourself. Next up from a handheld to be a small-ish rig FT817 KX3R, the 857 is a bit beefier. For these, you usually will need a separate battery, and the 817 has an internal one. This does open up HF, whole new world, and sideband on 2 meters. I haven't found SSB particularly fruitful on summits in Ireland outside of contest days, either the counties contest here or if there's a backpackers contest on with the RSGB, it can be good. They generally will have more power than a handheld. The FT818 is now 6 watts compared to a Baofeng that's about 5. So 1 watt makes a difference at that level. They'll have better filtering. They'll be able to cope better with those broadcast transmitters you may be near. And those lighter rigs, the 817, it's small, it's rugged, and yeah, they're a great choice. Especially if you have external batteries and some sort of lightweight antenna you can construct them. So we can talk a bit more about the antennas a little later. There are other options, of course. There are tiny QRP, generally CW rigs. The mountain toppers there have been one example. Some of these can work off a 9-volt battery. Some of them are like half a watt. If you're into the DIY, making your own kit radios, great choice. You'll enjoy trying to work them. If you haven't worked, now I'm bad at CW anyway, so I haven't tried this. But what I've been told is that unless you're actually used to working QRP CW, you probably don't want to start with this. As you get more experienced in it, sure, I don't know if Declan or anyone has joined here regularly operates CW. Could talk about this later on a bit. So definitely worth doing. A lot of the contacts made in SOTA are CW. We'll have a look at that later. But if you're new to it, it could be a frustrating start. At the other end of the spectrum, I have brought a 450D up and operated at 80 watts. It's heavy. Your battery doesn't last long, but if you're able to bring it up for a short activation, yeah, it can be a fun change, to operate that kind of power. It certainly makes the QSOs a bit easier. So talking about power, how much do you need? This is a topic that generates a lot of conversation, and I think it's overthought. There's a lot of discussion about minute details of batteries that probably isn't as important as people think. So if we have a look through a couple of examples, the FT817, straight from the manual, 13.8 volts plus or minus 15%. I think nearly every radio states that. Certainly the ASI ones I've looked at do. But it does operate from 8 to 16 volts, so it's fairly tolerant of a wide range of battery power. Receive, it only is using 450 milliamps, and since its output is 5 watts, transmitted 2 amps. So let's make some very broad assumptions. If we were to spend 3 hours on a summit and we transmit at that 2 amps 50% of the time, unrealistic. You're not going to be transmitting 50% of the time, and you're certainly not going to be doing a full duty cycle. That works out to be 3.6 amp hours. So we need a battery that can give at least 8 volts for the 3000 milliamp hours. Batteries generally seem to be milliamp hours, so this level anyway, and capable of delivering 2 amps, which isn't much. So looking at what comes in, well, my internal battery that I got with the radio anyway, from Yaesu has an NIMH pack that's 9.6 volts. So that's cutting under the 13.8 minus 15%, but it works. At those assumptions, it's good for over an hour. So that's an internal battery in the 817 will do you for an activation. Other options to look at, yeah, you can just make a pack of newer, I guess, NIMHs. Those LADA ones from IKEA seem to be pretty well reviewed. That'll do a couple of hours. And then if you want to get more into this and invest in batteries, it's worth looking at the LiPo or LiFePO4 batteries. Slightly different chemistry between the two. You will, for an 817, get away with a 3S LiPo, but you would need a 4S of the LiFEs. The cell voltages are different. I've gone with the assumption of a 4200 milliamp hour. Yeah, that'll do you for the full 3 hours. there are smaller ones at 2,200. The point is really to you know, consider how much power you're going to need. For an 817 to run it at full power, okay, that's 22 amps it's now going to be transmitting with, 1 amp receive. So even receiving, it's using twice the juice of an 817. So to use that for an extended period, and again, 100 watts is not realistic. Even, you know, if I was to take an 857, I'd have it dialed down to 20 or 50 or something like that. This is where you get into the golf cart batteries, and I think Joe was saying that he uses a golf cart battery or something similar to it for portable operation. They can be a bit heavy to take up a mountain, but at 3 kilos, they're not too bad if it's a short trip. And the LiFe in this case wouldn't power it for very long. But you know, our example is you know, deliberately unrealistic at 100 watts for 50% of the time. You're not going to be doing that. So just a little bit then on the LiPo and LiFe. Somewhat of a warning here. LiPos can explode. Go Google it, particularly on YouTube. It's hilarious. 46,400 results for LiPo explosion. The majority of those are people deliberately blowing up their batteries, but a few of them aren't. And you capture surprises. This can happen if they're damaged or not charged properly or completely discharged. And I have one somewhere. I've never had a problem with it by looking after it, so it's probably not, you know, dangerous to touch in the, you know, explosive sense, but you do need to be careful with them. They also, both these types of batteries will need a dedicated charger. This ensures the cells don't get overcharged. But these batteries also have what's called a balance lead. So there's the main chunky leads that come out for connecting to the rig, and then there's a small little balance charger that basically has pins that can access each cell. So when you're balance charging, it will use the main connector to charge at, you know, a couple of amps. And once one of the cells gets to its desired voltage, and these chargers know what the correct voltage is for the various chemistries, the balance charge will discharge it a little, and then it'll recharge the whole set. So if they get out of sync, which can happen if you just do regular charges and don't do balance charges, it can take a while to rebalance, but it's pretty safe to do, and they'll generally come back up. Also worth just having a quick look at the voltage discharge on these kind of batteries. LiPos can be 4.3 volts when full. So if you're using 3 or 4 of them, that may push you significantly over your 13.8 plus 15%. So if you're using LiPos, check the voltage before you plug the radio in. You don't want to send too much voltage into your radio. Nominally, then they're at 3.7. So that's the voltage you'll use for your general operating for most of the time. And I'll touch on the alarm in a sec. For the LiFe cells, they're 3.6 when full, so not as high, but you still want to check. They'll be down to 3.3 volts at a nominal usage. So that's why for the 817 we were using 4 of these cells versus 3 of the LiPos. And you set the alarm for that at 3 volts. So the alarm is this little gizmo in the bottom there. It plugs into the balance charger, and will let you, you can set an alarm for a particular voltage, and it will cycle through showing you the full voltage of the battery and the voltage of each cell. And as soon as a cell goes below a particular voltage, an alarm will go off. That's probably the point you want to stop using your radio. After one of these cells hits that alarm, the voltage will drop down, and you'll start noticing the radio will, you know, cut out on transmit and things like that, which probably isn't good for the radio. So the discharge curve here, yeah, check for whatever battery you have, but in general the profile looks like this. The voltages will depend on the chemistry. So they'll start high, straight off the charger, drop down quickly, settle around this 3.7 or 3.3 for LiFes, and you want to stop transmitting where we start falling off of this curve. You don't want to go down to that kind of depleted level. Once the battery actually starts, the cell starts losing charge, that's where you want to call it a day. Those alarms are a couple of euro. I got them from Hobby King when I got the radio. They're loud, but they're useful. It's just safer to operate with, I think. That's probably enough about batteries. You're bored of things now. Antennas. God, as with ham radio in general, the antenna discussion is as wide as you want to make it. Probably more so with SOTA, because you're dealing with QRP, and you can get away with a lot more. A lot of designs you wouldn't get away with putting 100 watts into, probably. So for VHF, I've started using this kind of Slim Jim kind of design on the right now. I got that picture from VK1 NAM. So it's made from twin lead. Just sticks onto your telescopic pole that you probably or may have a HF antenna on as well. Another option is a little telescopic dipole. So yeah, not pretty much more than rabbit ears there, but it gets you a dipole which is going to be better than your your standard handheld comes with the radio. The commercially then for directional stuff, there's the Elk and Arrow antennas, mainly marketed for satellite, but they're light and they're portable and they fold away into a bag. They're really great for SOTA. And if you don't feel like buying one, of course, there's the DIY route. Yeah, there's one made from tape measures. There's lots of different options. You can really get out the the bit of wood and coat hangers and make stuff for this, and it'll work pretty well, and be an improvement on the standard. You can go a bit silly. This was being silly, taking a 9-element up on top of Lugnaquilla in a gale. Doesn't look like it there, but that was windy. You can see a couple of the elements are bent. Probably wouldn't do that again. Didn't even win the contest, but yeah, it was fun to do, but I wouldn't advise that. But it also depends on conditions. The 2-meter contest, I think 2 years ago, we ended up with snow everywhere in March or April, whenever the contest was. So that was our Darren. Yeah, and it's just miserable trying to get out in a snowstorm and twist a Yagi around, and yeah, I've learned to just take simpler options now. For HF then, you need to think a little bit more. You're going to need a big pole, probably, no matter what you do here. There are options, particularly in the US folks, like these buddy pole things. They're kind of telescopic dipole setups that don't seem to be too popular here. The way to go, certainly with the European operator, seems to be this: get a big pole, 7 to 10 meters, and use a link dipole or end fed on it. They're available from SOTA Beams or Wemo, the usual kind of radio stockists. I've the cheapest option. It's about €20. There are granted better ones, more expensive. They're just going to be that bit stronger. They're a bit heavier, but they're a bit stronger if you're operating in wind. Linked dipoles would be a common enough choice for HF, easy to make. You may want to buy one just for the weight and to have somebody else properly weather seal it. That's why I went and bought one after a couple of experiments. Simple crocodile clips to change bands. Some have traps. Generally the crocodile clips work fine. It does have the disadvantage that if you're operating in bad weather and you want to change bands, you have to take the antenna down and move the clips and put it back up again. Generally works in an inverted V configuration. As I say, you can make one or buy it. End fed's another popular option. Now Declan seems to be really fond of these lately. He did point out the Declan 6F4. That a big advantage is that you can stay in your shelter and just change bands with the tuner. You don't need to get out and mess around with crocodile clips, and it gives you much bigger range of bands to work with from 10 meters down to typically 60, but people have activated a lot lower. There are other options. You can use kites if you so wish, and yeah, as high as you can get those in all practice really, to get on the lower bands. Generally, I just go with a linked dipole. The advantage in not having to bring a tuner just simplifies things for me. And if I am going out in bad weather, I'll kind of compensate by bringing a tent and a good flask of tea and a stove or something, and making myself comfortable while I'm up there. Not so much bunkering behind rocks in the snow. Other stuff to bring, yeah, if you're going the end-fed route, you'll need a tuner. There are commercial ones designed for QRP. LDG make one specifically for the 817 as well as a general one. There are small tuner kits that you can get on eBay, AliExpress, and places like that that will have the toroid and bits of wire. I have a kit for one here. I haven't actually tried building it and seeing how it works. And then the purely DIY route, there's lots of designs for building tuners and things out there. I particularly like Peter Parker's website, VK3YE, as a website, great YouTube channel, and some self-published books on Amazon. So yeah, there are a few euro if you download the Kindle versions. So he's some really interesting plans, and yeah, he's an interesting guy to watch his YouTube videos of some of the fun he has with pedestrian, mobile, and operating QRP. If you want to go the CW route, if you want to bring your nice expensive key up, do. But there are cheap options. I don't think this particular one I have in the middle is made anymore. That's the one I've got, but it's really light, and the keys tuck away so it doesn't get broken in, getting put in a bag. And again, the DIY route, there's plenty of guys that have tin foil and closed bag CW keys for SOTA that seem to do quite well on it. Headphones, yeah, if you're on a windy summit, it does help. And an amplifier might seem a strange thing when we've been talking about QRP to stick an amp at the end. But if you don't want to bring up a QRO rig, or well, QRO, something that can do up to 30 watts, an amp may be an option. It'll let you use the low receive current for the 817, and put 3 watts into some of these, and you're getting 30 watts out, which is a big improvement on just using 5 for QRP. Does certainly help. You do need to factor in the power again, but yeah, I think we've covered power enough. That's the bulk of the kind of standard things you'd want. However, that did come up when we were talking last Tuesday about using digital. So I had a chat with John Holland. Don't know if he's joined in. So this is his digital setup. He has a Windows tablet there that's running, I don't know, it's JTDX or one of the FT8 programs anyway. All nicely put away in a waterproof box here. Yeah, the disadvantage to operating digital is you do need to bring a laptop or a tablet, or there are phone apps that'll do PSK on RTTY. You may need to again consider power, and time synchronization, particularly for FT8, may be important. John's way of doing this was to set up a wireless spot with his phone on 3G, 4G, whatever, and connect the laptop to the phone. The phone is basically then a Wi-Fi point. The tablet connects to the phone and then can use its regular time syncing software. I'm sure there are options. You can buy something to connect to GPS time. That seems to be what John has done. Seems to be what the more popular way of doing it. Interesting. John was saying that he wanted to try this to see if it would get better DX. See if he could pull in stations from further afield than he was with SSB. It didn't really seem to bring in much more in terms of distance. Certainly more stations, not more in terms of distance, I think. So yeah, it's worth experimenting with, but Yeah, it may not be as good as you'd expect. But it is something I'm gonna try certainly at some stage. I might bring the laptop up some easy hill and maybe try PSK or something if there's a PSK contest or something going on. Hiking equipment, yeah, going a bit off topic here, but it depends on the hills. We have some mountains that, you know, shorts and runners are fine for going up. There's others not so much. If you're heading up into Wicklow, certainly on any of the ones where there's hikes involved, yeah, decent hiking boots. It's very easy to twist an ankle, even on the paths that are in the mountains. Rain jacket, layers, gaiters if you're going to be trudging through bog. A map and compass. People sometimes roll their eyes when you say, "I'll bring a map and compass." It's like, yeah, I have a phone. It's fine. I have had to use a map and compass probably 3 or 4 times on the hills, and where this photo was the last time actually. I did have a phone, but I was also on a summit with my 7-year-old daughter in those conditions for basically overnight, 15 hours. Keeping a 7-year-old amused in a tent in that weather is pretty hard. No, there's only so many commercial stations you can listen to on HF before, you know, you just give me the phone to play with. So I ended up with 0 visibility, no phone, and yeah, had to micro navigate and pace myself off it. And that was Tunlagee, which I know backwards. I just didn't know exactly where the route. If you're coming down from Tunlagee to the ESB car park, it's fairly obvious where you go for a while, and then there's a turn left to head down towards the road. That's not that obvious in poor visibility. So yeah, out with the map and compass. Shelters and foam seats, yeah, if you like. I'm terrible for just bringing a tent because I have a lightweight one and it's comfortable. You know, if you want to go a bit lighter, yeah, a foam seat can be nice. Wicklow is nearly always wet and cold. Even in summer days, it's a bog and the rocks are not comfortable. So a little bit of foam can help. Camping, I do a couple of times a year try and, well, non-COVID anyway, try and do overnights. Can be interesting to, you know, try 40 meters at night, see who you're going to get. It can be surprising. Particularly if you're spotting yourself, you will find that US stations, and there are some big chasing US stations, will, you know, quite happily point their beams over and try and make the contacts. Camping is allowed as standard, as a rule, in the Wicklow Mountains National Park. Other places, not so much. There's general leave no trace, no fires. There's rules there for it, but you're allowed. And generally you're on your own. At night time, you may run into the army. That they're the only people who will come along at night and disturb you, and they'll just come along and say hello and what are you doing. Yeah, early the next morning, you typically will find European tourists coming around. I have been woken up at kind of 7 a.m. by curious Germans, which is just odd, but hey, Germans. They seem to like the outdoors quite a lot. So at the summit then, you don't need to be right at the trig point, particularly on busy hills. Here's Joust, for example. There are going to be people coming up a lot. Yeah, if you're just operating FM on your handheld, that's great. If you've got, you know, HF antenna that's, you know, 10, 15 meters in each direction, yeah, you don't want them tripping over it. It's just hassle. So yeah, you can set up a little bit away. To qualify for the summits, you can be 25 meters altitude from the summit, which for most of our gentle hills, yeah, gives you a fairly wide area to set up. You can usually find somewhere that's nice and sheltered, somewhere a bit comfortable. Do spot yourself, or ask, you know, some of the contacts you make to do so, or put an alert up before you go. SOTAwatch.org is the standard place. We do also have a SOTA Ireland Facebook group, so that, you know, put a post on there if you're looking for local contacts, and kind of get the message out. I would say to those of you who are kind of not interested at all in SOTA, well, thanks for listening so far, if that's the case. But a lot of people, and myself included, will leave the radio on 145-500 if you're working away in the garden or at home, or, you know, working from home as we are these days. And yeah, someone calls and says, yeah, I'm too busy to get back. If you hear someone calling CQ SOTA, please just get back. Take the 30 seconds it takes to give the 5-9 and your call sign. Often activators can be up on someone's trying to get that last contact, and this happened with someone on host the other day. At least I think it did, where they had 3 contacts and were kind of posting on Facebook trying to get the last one. So yeah, please get back. Call, if you're activating, call CQ SOTA and gives the somewhat reference so it's clear to people that's what you're doing. You may need to call for a while, but having pileups is common enough, particularly once someone spots you, and you have 20 meters as being kind into Europe, for example. Listen out for summit-to-summit calls. These count to their own award, and they count for chaser points. And it's also just cool to be able to chat to somebody else on a summit somewhere else in Europe. They are also probably going to be operating QRP, so you do need to listen. It will be a 3-in-1 kind of signal, but yeah, listen out for them. You can check SOTA Watch, either the website or there is an app, phone app, that'll alert you to who's on other summits. There are a few little rules here about what contacts count. Repeaters don't, but you can go and call on a repeater. Look, is there? I'm on such a summit. Is there anyone local that can try simplex? That's absolutely fine. Satellite contacts do count, interestingly enough, and you need 4 QSOs for the activation. And that's I think there's only one time I've failed to get 4, and to be honest, I wasn't really trying. I brought the kids up onto 2 Rock, and I think Tony Doyle was the only person I managed to talk to for a few minutes. But yeah, so the summit was activated, but I didn't get any points for it. But nah, sure. So the awards that are available, they're when you come down, put your log into your favorite software. You can add them one by one, or you can upload an ADIF file. Both activators and chasers should submit the logs. If you're just happen to be answering the odd CQ, yeah, and you're not interested in the award, you don't have to. Nobody is cross-checking here that these logs match up. So it's all done on trust. The points, you get points for each summit activated once per year. So if I go up on Capure today, I'll get the points for it. If I go up again tomorrow, I don't get any more points. Chasers can get points for 1 QSO on a given summit per day. So if there's 2 people up activating a summit, you only get the points for 1 of them. But please work the 2 just for the activator's benefit. There are seasonal points, and this varies between associations. In Ireland, you get an extra 3 points for summits over 500 meters, December to March. So that does create a slight loophole with the first point there. So if I go up in November and get my 10 points for say Lugnaquilla, and then go up in December, I don't get the other 10 points, but I'll get the 3 bonus points for winter. So kind of goes that way. And summit to summit QSOs count for chaser points. Of the awards you can get, then there's the Mountain Goat, which is probably the more famous one, for 1,000 activation points. And if you think, okay, you can go up Lugnaquilla and get 10 points, and you can do that once a year, there's a fair amount of work in getting to the 1,000. Shack Sloth, probably easier, but still, you're trying to, certainly if you have a modest station, trying to make contacts with QRP stations at a distance can be tricky. So it's only a bit easier possibly. Again, 1,000 points. You're eligible for a certificate. You can download it for free and then buy these little crystal trophies, I guess. There are certificates then for the milestones. Summit to Summit has its own one. Microwave, which I know nothing about, and can't imagine that's an easy thing to do on SOTA, but perhaps well organized, with schedules and contests, maybe it is. And there's a Mountain Explorer and Mountain Hunter, which I didn't know till I was writing this up, for activating and chasing multiple associations. Yeah, I haven't come across that one. So briefly, having a quick look at kind of what's SOTA in Ireland. These are the kind of latest statistics just for Echo India activations. Yeah, it was easier for me to just pull Echo India. So there's a pretty obvious kind of pattern here. and it probably ties back to what I was saying, that the linked dipole been popular and convenient for those HF bands, mainly concentrated around, you know, I guess the more popular 20, 30, 40, and then with a spike for 2 meters and 70. FM pretty much counts for all of those 2 meters and 70 ones. There are a few in the 23 centimeter category, but for HF it's pretty much split between SSB and CW. CW, yeah, edging it out. Certainly seems to be over time it's been more popular. I get the feeling it isn't as popular now. Certainly I don't see as many CW spots in Echo India. Certainly worldwide it is. Yeah, with the notable exception of Declan 6F4, who was just CW the whole time pretty much. So looking at, now again, we're just looking at Echo India activations here. Many of these activators will have activated up north or in other countries, and you know, these aren't the kind of the full roll of honor, but yeah, look at the graph, the list there for highest number of activations. 3K 180 activations is stunning. Now I know he's been at it a while, but wow. Yeah, 7 Golf Yankees there with 33. John, who we mentioned with his digital setup at 25. I at least made the list, which is somewhat reassuring. And the highest number of QSOs, so yeah, granted there's a lot of activations to get to those, but yeah, once you're up and spotted, 20, 30, 40 QSOs is not unusual, and so you can get pileups. The activations then by quarter down the years, so it took a while to get started here, but it's been pretty constant, peaking in the summer as you'd expect, dying off in the winter time. I was expecting at the very end that there'd be pretty much no activations, but the cabin fever from lockdown, as soon as people were able to get up on the hills again, they seem to just, everybody's gone out. So there's been over 80 activations in Q3 this year. So yeah, I think that really just shows people, you know, oh, we can move more than 2 kilometers again and get going. Right, I'm at 45 minutes. I'm just going to go through a few of the summits you may like to consider and why. Benahoath is probably the easiest one near Dublin. You know, there's a road pretty much all the way up. There's a pub within a kilometre. I know the South Dublin Radio Club have used this for kind of outreach and contest days. There's great chance of contacts, of course, with Dublin. You know, once people respond to the CQs, up towards Dundalk and possibly Wales on 2 meters as well. There are a couple of Welsh operators. Don Golf Whiskey Zero PLP, I think, who entered the 2 meter contest there recently, generally keeps an ear out, and that'd be someone who I'd chat to quite regularly. On summits of all heights over to Wales. There are some commercial transmitters, but they don't seem to cause too much problem. Two Rock then, 6 points. Parking at Ticknock is probably the general option here. 2K walk up. It's mostly on a nice paved path. The last stretch is a bit of a rocky trail. Summit itself can be busy, but you can kind of hide away. There's a few kind of rocks and crags you can use for shelter. The transmitters are far enough away that they don't really cause problems. The Little Sugarloaf is another nice one. There is a couple of parking spaces on the N11 side, which is the quick way up. Belmont Dements, which seems to have opened up in the last few years, they have a nice little cafe and a marked walking route up. It's longer, but you know, hey, it does have a cafe and parking, and it's nice. So there is a steep little summit walk at the end there. There's usually not a lot of people at it. There's not a huge amount of room for HF antennas, but there's few people there, so it's a nice Wicklow one. Sugarloaf across the road, pretty much. A very popular walking one. It is a SOTA summit. Well known for break-ins of cars, unfortunately, as well. It looks a nice walk up. It's deceptive, though. There's a scramble at the end where you're on all fours, and it can be busy. And again, not a lot of space for HF. Capure, the only 10-pointer I've put on here. Although Joust is a lot more than 2 points. I think it's 8. Capura 10 points. So you can park at the gate. It's a 2k walk up the road to the summit. Big RTE station up there, but there's hardly ever anyone up there either. So you can get a bit out of the way and operate. Joust, certainly the most scenic one of the 6 here I've kind of picked around Dublin. There's a few car parks is probably a generous word, but parking areas around Loch Tay. Then it's a walk along a boardwalk, and then trail at the end, just kind of up to the top of Joust. It can be busy, but there's plenty of room. My QSL card there is from Joust. It's just hidden from most of Dublin by the mountains, the Dublin mountains in front of it. So yeah, contacts can, on 2 meters can be tricky there, but it is a nice walk up anyway. So give it a go. So to touch on people who mightn't be interested in SOTA, for a lot of reasons, people may not be able or really want to go up strenuous mountains. There is also the Worldwide Flora and Fauna Award. I haven't looked into this a lot, and it's probably something I should do, because it would be a good outreach thing to be able to operate from picnic tables and in anywhere in a park. You can operate in the designated parks. You can be from your car, from a cafe, anywhere. You need 44 rather than 4 QSOs, but they can be logged on multiple visits. And again, there does seem to be interest, particularly across the continent in this. The Irish one is confusing. To be honest, I haven't seen many activations of it. It seems to have been set up a while ago by a gentleman in England, and I don't see the logic to what counts as a park and what doesn't. Case in point, Glendalough and Wicklow Mountains National Park are both parks, but they're both the same one. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but it's an option if you want to get out and operate portable and work towards an award, but don't feel like going up on mountains. So last couple of bits then. Yeah, enjoy the experience. We have some really beautiful hills around the country that are well worth visiting. You will get people coming up to talk to you. Not so much with COVID, but in normal times, which hopefully will return before too long, people will come over and have a chat and ask what you're doing. I've had park rangers, the army rangers, entire youth clubs, and they're just amazed, but particularly the younger groups, that you're chatting away to some random Italian or German on the radio, and it doesn't involve the internet, and it's actually working. It's amazing to see the amazement particularly on kids who just this is an alien concept. So do take the opportunity to explain amateur radio to them if you have the time. This can be annoying if you're trying to operate a contest, to be honest, but it probably is the best kind of outreach of just operating at the moment. Aside from the club, for example, operating in Howth or near near where we used to meet. So it is a great opportunity for outreach, and maybe the Worldwide Flora and Fauna is something to look at there for outreach as well. I did put together a little leaflet. It's up on the RTS website. To be honest, I put this together to hand people to make them go away, but it serves its purpose as a general interview to amateur radio and SOTA. And there is a SOTA Ireland Facebook group as well if you want to join. Lots of pictures of people's activations and when they're going up and stuff like that. So there is a little bit of an Irish community to it. So yeah, gone over 50 minutes. I think somebody posted this was going to be a 20-minute lecture. Apologies, but I'll leave it at that. I'll just give you those URLs, and yeah, thanks very much, all 25 people for listening. Thank you.
Okay, that was excellent. Yeah, that's blew my brain anyway. I've been trying to keep track of you by doing some website pops up here in the background here, but I can't keep up. There's too much information, but certainly interesting. So
I'll upload the PDF somewhere, and if people want to go through it again, I'll probably skim through some of those a bit quick for some people. So
yeah.
Albert, Victor GI4ONL, who you probably know from SOTA.
Yeah.
Certainly on the island of Ireland, I'm the most active person in SOTA. I've done over 750 activations in, I don't know, something like 22 countries and DXCC countries. Can I say that was a superb presentation?
Oh,
okay.
Thanks very much, Victor.
Okay.
It means a lot from you.
for people that have no interest in the thing or no ideas about it, that was an excellent introduction there. Really, really good. There's very few things that you didn't cover, I don't think, I have to say. One thing that I've found, if anybody is ever going abroad, and I've operated around quite a few different places, including places where I don't speak the language, I always print out, first of all, the SOTA leaflet, but I also get a little slip of paper and I use Google Translate and I put on it who I am and what I'm doing in their language, and I hand it to them, and it usually works. So it's just a tip if you're ever going abroad, especially to some of the places, Czech Republic, Poland. I've been all around Europe, and it's useful if you have something in their own language to hand to them rather than trying to explain, because like you said, many's a time you get people that come along and some of them are curious, just what the heck are you doing, and others are wanting to say, are you in my land, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So I find that useful. But no, you covered a lot of things there that certainly are worth going. So that's good.
Right, thanks, Victor. Yeah, I hadn't even thought of that for Google Translate, because I had, again, pre-COVID was hoping to go over to France this year and maybe activate a couple of hills over there around Brittany, but hadn't thought that bringing something in the people's own language just to hand them, especially when you don't have the language yourself.
In Spain, I've done a fair wee bit in Spain. In mainland Spain, but also in the Balearics and on the Canary Islands. And there you can get off the SOTA SOTA.org.uk, you can get the leaflet there in Spanish, the whole SOTA leaflet, and print it off in Spanish. And I usually carry a few of those. But for other places, the likes of, as I say, Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, just do it. I just do it out in their own language, and just a wee slip of paper and hand it to them, and it's amazing. You get the nods. They know you can't communicate in the language, but they're appreciative of, and unfortunately they usually come in the middle of a pile-up. I'm like Declan, if he's here, I don't know or not. CW is my thing. As I say, I've done, I think it's 757 activations, and at least 2/3 of them have been just CW. It's my way of doing things, and that's it. So, but sideband, certainly. You talked about spotting, and my experience is, certainly on HF, if you go into remote areas and you haven't put a spot up, it can be very difficult. If you haven't got 2 meters, it can be very difficult to get the contacts. Once you've got a spot up, the thing just lights up, and away you go. You get loads and loads of contacts usually then, but it's important to get a spot. If you look at the background behind me, incidentally, you may see a helicopter. Do you see that?
I do.
Well, that's significant to SOTA. That's why it's up on there, because I had a particularly bad fall in the Canary Islands, where I was pretty battered and bruised and broke 2 ribs. And that helicopter came and pulled me off on a winch off the top of a summit, which I had walked 3 hours to get into. And there's no way I could come back out again after the fall. I had been checking every foothold that I was going up, and I reached up, put my weight in my left hand, and the bit of rock broke, and I went AOT, as they say, down the hill. And if I hadn't had the rucksack on, I may not be talking to you now, because the rucksack saved an awful lot and took a fair bit of the thumb. But I had to dial 112 and say, please come and get me off here. So that's why the helicopter's there.
Yeah. Was that just you were able to just use the local emergency number? I mean, would you ever
Absolutely,
use
112, yeah,
APRS or anything like that?
No,
Is that
no,
something
no, no. No, I mean, I carry do you know what a alarm is? That Garmin have taken them over now. I have a satellite device that, if you can see the sky, if you can see the Iridium satellites, phone signal or no phone signal, you can communicate, you can send text messages or emails from it. I can send spots from it if I don't get phone coverage. But more importantly, there's a red button on it with a lock on it that says SOS. And if you're in trouble in the middle of nowhere where you have no phone signal, unlock it and hit the button. Now, I didn't have to do that because I had phone signal and I was able to dial 112. And I mean, they were superb. You know, they said, "How can we help you?" And I said, "You know, I've had a bad fall. I'm hurt, but I'm fine. But I need to get out of here. Can we send people to help you?" "Well, it's taken me 3 hours to get here. It'll be an awkward extraction. They need a helicopter." "Hold on." "Okay, we'll send a helicopter." And that was as simple as that. And they then give me a phone number and said, "Can you send a WhatsApp to this phone number? That's one of the pilots and he'll use it to get you." I was able to give them off my GPS all the coordinates of exactly where I was. And they came up and I had got into a wee bit of shade because it was 32 degrees, which was kind of hot. And I'd got into a bit of shade out of the sun, and they came to look for me, and I was within 20 meters of where I should have been. And they flew away a little bit, and it was like something in the movies. "Oh no, God, they've gone." And I got out into the sun, and I always have a high-vis vest in the top of the rucksack. Took it out, waved it in the end of the walking pole. They came back. They sounded a siren in the helicopter to say, "We've seen you." Then they did a bit of a survey, dropped the winch man down. He had no English, I had no Spanish, but we communicated in sign language. And the helicopter come back, put the thing down. He clipped me on, winched me up. I got very unceremoniously hauled up the floor of the helicopter, and they took me back. And when we landed back down again, from me making my first phone call to being on the ground was 1 hour exactly. And I apologized. One of the pilots, when he got out, had really good English, and I apologized. And the guy said to me, "Stop, stop, stop. This is what we're here for. We're here for this. You were in trouble. You asked for help. We've got you. We would much rather do that than someone say, 'Victor's missing, and we're now looking for a body.'"
Yeah, somewhere on a hill, somewhere. Yeah.
So there we go. So that's just a little aside, So there we go.
The thing then, Victor there mentioned spotting, and that's certainly a thing I found useful, but I haven't always had a smartphone with me. There are, Albert, I think, certainly on HF, sort of SOTA frequencies, certainly are on CW anyway. So, I mean, I can't remember them. It's years since I've done a SOTA. I do the walking now.
7032. 14060 10118.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, shall we say? I mean, the spotting is good, but I think it's also probably equally important to be on the sort of SOTA frequencies, where people will, are listening. A bit like Albert there saying he leaves 145 500 on in the background. People leave the SOTA.
Well, yeah, I would say yes and no to that, because I'm always off. If I go on 30 meters, which is my favorite band, I never go on 10118. Unless I can't spot. If I can put a spot, I always go on 101195. It's just what I use. The reason being, maybe you could get 5 or 6 people that can't hear me that are using 10118, and other people then that are trying to chase me are on there and can't hear me. So I always go off askew slightly.
But in or around, I suppose.
But if I can't get a spot, I go exactly on the frequency that most people are listening on. Yeah. So
that makes sense. I don't know if there are SOTA frequencies on VHF. I'm not all that familiar with it.
On VHF. Well, 145 500, and a lot of people go down to 145 400. Some of the English guys will go down as low as 145 300. But usually about here, I certainly would go from 500. I would go down to 400, and it seems to be used a fair bit you know, but it's just up to the individual person.
I was glad to see you mentioned contests in the presentation, Albert. Yeah, and in fact, in the contest there 2 weeks ago, there were Slieve Foy was on, Little Sugar Loaf, and I think Slieve Naman. So we had 3 summits. I was on a summit, but not a SOTA summit. But I didn't go up there, and I was near enough to it. But yeah. I didn't really have the time or the energy to go all the way up. But anyway, so yeah, so I mean the contests are quite a useful thing for picking up SOTAs or getting activator points.
Yeah,
there's
and
only one thing
the
that you
ideal
didn't-
time to.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Albert. Go on. Sorry, Albert. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's the ideal time to try SOTA, because if you're going up the day of a 2-meter contest, you're going to get the contacts no problem, and you're going to have a lot of fun just chatting to people. That seems to be. I know we've cut the contest down to 90 minutes, but there's still a fair bit of just chatting happens towards the end of it. So it's
you know the only thing
day.
the only thing that you didn't say here, Albert, in the presentation, and it's a very dangerous thing to do with SOTA.
What's that?
It's addictive. It's addictive. As far as I'm concerned, it's addictive. So
Yeah, well, in your case, certainly, Victor. Anyway, it's
both as an activator and as a chaser, because in activating I've hit 4,002 points, I think it is, and chasing I've just gone through 50,000. So
I think Victor, you're beyond redemption.
yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah, there is no SOTA anonymous program can help you, Victor.
Well, I know I've tried, but I can't get help with it, So there you go. And if you think I'm bad, I go off sometimes to Europe with G4OBK. You may know that call sign, you may not. Phil, and boy, I think I'm bad, but he's absolutely obsessed with the thing, totally.
In terms of chasing as well, if you want to start chasing, the best way to do it, as Albert pointed out there, is regularly look at sotawatch.org and look at the website itself. It gives, there's basically 2 tabs in that. There's one which is alerts and one which is spots. The alerts are basically people put up where they're going to be on a particular time, on a particular day, what bands they're going to be on, etc. And then the alerts then are the actual spots that they're putting up themselves and others are putting up. So if you want to start chasing and doing SOTA, it's one of the best resources to actually go chasing. I don't know if Albert can pull up, I can't do it from this PC, just to show what the actual website looks like. I don't know whether you can pull it up there or not.
Yeah, start the browser now.
The new one, SOTAWatch 3. It's superb. Absolutely the way to do it.
And the other one which tends to be used here in Ireland is the SOTAWatch Ireland Facebook page. Again, most of the activators here tend to put up that they'll be up tomorrow morning on such a peak somewhere else, and then what they'll do is they tend to spot then themselves or get somebody else to spot when they're actually up there as well.
Unfortunately, I usually forget to do that, and I must really make a point of trying to do it. Sometimes you'll see me out because of the way the Ofcom in the UK changed the licensing regulations. It really annoys me, because when I used to go to EI, I was Echo India stroke Golf India 4 Oscar November Lima. They then changed the regulations that I can't do that, and I had to go EI stroke G4ONL. I've now lost my identity, so because of that, I got an EI call sign, and you'll hear me as Echo India 7 Kilo Papa, because it really annoys me that I've lost the identity when I go to a foreign place, that I've got to drop my own call sign. Yeah, there's the sign up, that's it.
Yeah, and you can you can filter by if you're just interested in the Echo India ones. There's also a phone app then that kind of goes along with this, that you can set to give you a notification of you know, as specific as you want. If it's just, you know, beep every time there's a 2 meter activation on particular summits near you or something. So
Yeah, for Android, SOTA Spotter is very good.
don't know what.
And I think on I don't have an iPhone, but I think SOTA Goat is back on the iPhone again.
Yeah, I don't have one, so it's SOTA Spotter is the one I have on Android.
SOTA Spotter is a great app on Android.
Yeah, that's the one I've got.
You actually need a call sign to log on to these websites.
You need to set up, you need to register on that particular website, that's all.
No, but just to see it, you don't need a call sign.
Just to see it, you don't. No.
You don't know.
Yeah, but if you're going to post.
At the
If you're going to
moment,
post, and if you're going to post and register points, chaser points and activator points.
at the moment I can only listen. I'm not allowed to press the button, you know.
Yeah, but
Well, there's a shortwave listener section in it as well,
Well,
so you can log the points as a shortwave listener also.
but I tell you one thing, since I have the HF rig standing here, it's itching in my fingers. Really, I have to do the license. It's unbelievable.
There was some mention of IRTS doing some classes online. Does anyone know about that?
Yeah,
I'd heard something.
you will laugh now at me, but the worst bit will be all the electronics. Even so, I learned a long time ago radio and television mechanics. So, yips.
Yeah, it's a bit of practice. You have it, no problem, I say. Some good material online for practicing. Okay, so anything else before we wrap up?
Albert, great presentation, and I just started on SOTA recently. I did the Little Sugarloaf and Rock. Just a question for you. Oh, by the way, thanks for the QSOs. I think I was
Yeah,
on
Little
both
Sugarloaf
occasions.
anyway. Yeah.
And I can see why it's addictive, all right. I just use 2 meters FM. I just want to ask a question. If you activate a summit, I know you have to get 4 QSOs. Let's say you have a bad day and you only get 3 or 2 QSOs, whatever. Now you can only activate a summit once a year. Is that gone for the year, or can you go back?
No, you can go back for the points. You can activate a summit as many times as you like, but you can only claim the points once a year. So
so if I have no luck, if I have no luck on the day, I can go back and kind of reactivate it in the year.
You can go back and then get your 4 QSOs the next day, or whenever. But the QSOs you made previously, they'll count for the chasers. So yeah.
All right.
Yeah, but it's not yeah, but it ain't cumulative. In other words, it won't count for the activation. You need to get 4 on the one day.
You need to get 4
on the day.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah. No, just on my first day on Little Sugarloaf, I think I got half a dozen. But I can imagine now if I went midweek, further away summits, because I'm only operating 2 meters, you could have difficulty hitting 4. But I appreciate the point of spotting and increasing your hit rate with that. Thanks anyway for that.
Thanks for those points there the other day.
No, my pleasure.
Anyone's got a last question for Albert or anyone else? Everyone happy?
Yeah, just to say, Albert, well done. That was excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, cheers, Eric.
Yeah, great stuff. Okay, great. So thank you everyone for calling in. It's been a great collection of people. I think as a club night, that's probably the most we've ever had. 25. at least for the last few years anyway. So that's great. And hopefully we'll have the club meeting next week, and we'll keep everyone up to date with any events coming up in the next few weeks. We'll hopefully line up a few more talks, which hopefully will prove as useful as this one has been. Okay.